We're going to get this started here shortly. I'm just giving everybody a heads up, it will be recorded beforehand, just so you're aware. Go ahead, we'll start the meeting right now.
Hard to hear.
Now we'll talk more into the microphone. Good evening. My name is Dean DeLuca. I'm the manager of the Health Department's Air Quality Program. I'll be chairing this hearing on behalf of the Allegheny County Health Department and the Board of Health. Public notice of this hearing appeared in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette on March 17, 2022. A copy of the proposed State Implementation Plan, also referred to sometimes as SIP, revision is available on the Health Department's website under the Air Quality Regulations and State Implementations Plans page. We are here to receive testimony on the proposed regulation revisions and the related SIP amendments that involve Section 2105.21 for coke ovens and coke oven gas, Section 2101.20 definitions, and Section 2109.01 inspections. These changes will be submitted as an amendment to the Allegheny County portion of the Pennsylvania State Implementation Plan as delineated in the documents. We value your input. I want to review the process for public comments at this public hearing. First, for those of you who have prepared comments and have signed up to share them, thank you. Each speaker has 3 minutes to present. Speakers will receive a reminder when they have 30 seconds remaining and when their allotted time has ended. Please remain seated until you are called on to testify and be respectful of others who are giving testimony. At the end of the call, if anybody comes in late, at the end of this hearing, if anybody comes in late, I'll go through all of the represented speakers to make sure everybody gets a chance if they did arrive late. During your comments, our job is to listen attentively. You will notice that neither I nor any other health department staff will respond. We simply listen. Additionally, this hearing is being transcribed by a court reporter, as well as live streamed and recorded. At a later date, a copy of the official record will be available upon request. Only registered speakers will be called on to testify. Those not registered or who registered after the deadline will not speak, may submit comments in writing. If you would like to provide comments after this hearing, you may do so in writing before the end of the public comment period, which ends at 4 p.m. on May 17th, 2022. After the public comment period ends, the Health Department will organize all public comments, both written and oral. The department will prepare a comment response document that includes a summary of all comments and ACHD responses. All comments will be considered prior to final action being taken. This comment response document will be made available to the public and will be included in the final SIP or State Implementation Plan revision. At this time, can I answer any general questions about the proceedings before we take to the public testimony?
I had registered and didn't receive a confirmation. Is that going to be a process that you decide who you allow to speak?
We have a list of the registered speakers. Anybody who's not on that list will still be able to make their public comments in writing afterwards. They just won't be able to do it orally today.
I need your name, man.
Melanie, M-E-A-D-E.
M-E-A-Z-E?
D is in
D, Mead. All right, thank you.
Okay. Going on to the registered speakers. The first one is Sam DeMarco. Please come up.
Manager DeLuca, I'd like to thank you for bringing this hearing out to the community so that all these folks are able to attend. My name is Sam DeMarco. I'm a member at large on Allegheny County Council. The following are my comments regarding the Allegheny County Health Department's proposed coke oven regulations for the U.S. Steel Mon Valley Works here at the Clairton plant. I've been following very closely the activity of the Allegheny County Health Department and its role as a regulator of our local businesses and industries here in Allegheny County. Of particular interest, I have noted with concern the number of fines, penalties, and additional proposed regulations from the county's health department on the largest manufacturing employer here in Allegheny County, United States Steel's Mon Valley Works. It is noteworthy that Allegheny County has achieved significant improvements in our air and water quality. Today, we can all celebrate the fact that our air and water quality in Allegheny County is better than ever. And over the past 2 years, Allegheny County has maintained all air quality standards established by the U.S. EPA, the first time that this has ever happened. I offer the following brief public remarks to highlight the importance of maintaining the proper balance between environmental regulation and the potential serious economic consequences your decisions can have upon thousands of hardworking men and women. The hardworking men and women I refer to are our neighbors and live in our communities. They send their children to our schools, They coach Little League teams. They volunteer in our communities and churches. They pay taxes, and they're the driving force of our local economy. The U.S. Steel Mon Valley Works is the largest industrial employer in Allegheny County. It has provided a steady and reliable source of good-paying jobs for generations of steelworkers, building trades, and local contractors. If the Allegheny County Health Department continues to force more stringent, subjective, and arbitrary regulations on the Clarendon Coke plant, it could jeopardize the future of the entire Mon Valley Works and the thousands of good-paying jobs it provides. Last year, I was joined by members of County Council for a plant visit to the Clarendon Coke plant. More recently, I again visited the U.S. Steel Clarendon plant for a meeting with management and union leadership to learn more about the current situation. During both of my visits, I learned that the Clarendon plant already operates under the most stringent environmental standards for steel and coke operations in the entire United States. As a member of County Council, I am committed to protecting our shared environment. However, I'm equally dedicated to making sure our residents have access to good-paying jobs and that our region continues to be a leader for manufacturing and industry. The U.S. Steel Mon Valley Works is a world-class steel mill, and we need to do everything in our power to support its future and the jobs it provides to our communities. In closing, I respectfully ask that the Allegheny County Health Department work more cooperatively with U.S. Steel and all stakeholders that rely on the future of this major employer. The Health Department needs to work with the company to find solutions that will not only continue to benefit the environment, but will also allow for good-paying manufacturing jobs and the continued production of coke, iron, and steel in the Pittsburgh region. Thank you very much.
Our second speaker is Thomas Bailey.
Good evening. My name is Tom Bailey. My wife and I live in Penn Hills. I practiced law for 5 years, and I taught public high school for social studies for 26 years. And contrary to the prior speaker, I see life a little differently here in Clarendon. My wife's asthma is bad. She and I can't shut down the Clarendon Coke Works. You are to enforce the Clean Air Act emission standards to protect our community. I feel the coke batteries 1, 2, and 3 should close now. The air monitoring equipment should be owned and operated by your agency, with real-time data fed to local municipal offices. The money U.S. Steel pays you in fines should be spent to conduct a thorough health study, which will show the world how clean our air is. You need to use progressive discipline. I understand it's been a long road for your agency to propose these regulations. U.S. Steel appealed 4 different administrative and enforcement orders, which led to Max Slater's 12/6/21 order, which rejected your coke oven gas restrictions as violating your prior agreement with U.S. Steel. But your regulations on pushing topside emissions were affirmed. Thank you for posting the Air Pollution Control Advisory Committee's coke oven and inspection regulation changes document on your website. I am not an engineer, so the diagrams help me understand more about the operation of the coke ovens. By reviewing the proposed regulations for public comment tonight, however, I was unable to understand which language was the final draft and which was removed by earlier action. This map from the Environmental Protection Agency's Green Book shows, contrary to the prior speaker, that non-attainment of 3 particulate matter 2.5 standards is in the color red. I got this last night. These areas release more particulate matter than the Clean Air Act permits. California is the only state with red, except for one on the southern tip of Allegheny County, and that's the Clarendon Coke Works. They continue to exceed the Clean Air Act emissions. Clarendon Coke Works continues to vomit volumes of particulate matter 2.5 into our air, which makes it difficult for my wife to breathe, and openly violates the Clean Air Act. Your agency continues to assess fines upon the plant owner who simply pays money to its lawyers to appeal your penalties. Many of us are running out of time for you to shut down this plant. I assure you, when that plant is closed, its owner will agree not to admit excessive particulate matter 2.5. I feel coke batteries 1, 2, and 3 should close now. The air monitoring equipment should be owned and operated by your agency with real-time data fed to local municipal offices, and the money the U.S. Steel pays you in fines should be spent to conduct a thorough health study of the lower Mon Valley, which will show the world how clean our air is or isn't, you need to use progressive discipline. Thank you.
The next speaker is Elena Skiba.
My name is Elena Skiba. I've lived in Glassport Borough for 50 years, and I've been on Borough Council for 9. I'm currently president of Glassport Borough Council, and I'm also a member of the Community Advisory Panel, the CAP. I'm here speaking on behalf of Glassport Borough and our elected officials. The CAP was created in 2019 to create a relationship between the 5 surrounding communities with the Clairton Works and U.S. Steel. For 3 years, we've done this very successfully. We've been provided tours, safety updates, updates on the mill's compliance, where they are with everything that's been mandated to them by the Allegheny County Health Department, which has all been very impressive. The Community Benefit Trust was also established in 2019. The trust is where 90% of the fines imposed on the mill goes. These fines are to be used by the 5 surrounding communities. To date, we've used these funds for projects that otherwise we would not have been able to do, such as parks, a rec center, police vehicles, and demolishing blighted properties. Prior to the settlement agreement between U.S. Steel and the Allegheny County Health Department to have fine monies put into the trust, those fine monies were put into the Clean Air Fund. The Health Department and the NGOs had access to this money, but I don't know really where that money went. I do know that those funds are not there for them now since this trust was established. And now my understanding is the fines that will be imposed differently than what the settlement agreement has established. And these fines will go back to the Clean Air Fund. This doesn't really make sense to me, and I'm a little bit confused on that issue. So, and just a little bit of background information. A couple years ago, Glassport had an issue with CSX. We had trouble with them idling on their tracks in town, not for hours, not for a day, days at a time, to the point that our residents were getting sick. Our residents begged and pleaded the Allegheny County Health Department to do something about it. And you know what? Not one thing was done. No environmental groups showed up to help. No environmental groups stepped up to help our residents. We had to go to Congress. So in our opinion, it made sense to us that maybe nobody was going to get fine money from CSX, but they can get fine money from the mill. I hear what people are saying, and I see how they're trying to use fear to manipulate people's opinions of the Clairton Works, but this is what some of you all need to know. The upgrades U.S. Steel puts into the Clairton plant are constant and endless. These upgrades cost millions of dollars. This proves U.S. Steel is committed to continuing the record-breaking environmental performance. This proves U.S. Steel is working hard to be compliant with the mandates from the Health Department. This proves their commitment to improve the air quality in our communities. This proves U.S. Steel is committed to keeping the Clairton Works open, and this proves that the Clairton Works are willing to work with the Allegheny County Health Department. If you're here as someone saying that you want to be a part of shutting down U.S. Steel, I feel bad for you, that you're buying into the misinformation that someone's feeding you. Maybe look at the real facts and the real numbers and the real families that will be displaced if, God forbid, this ever happens. Let's all work together on this. Let's all be a part of the right solution. Let's all see the facts for what they really are. Let's stop and think, if we allow any organization to stop the production of coke in the Mon Valley, what and who will be next? Thank you.
Next speaker is Lee Lakeland.
Good evening. My name is Lavina Lossage. I am a resident of the city of Clairton, having resided here for decades. I am speaking since I own property, and my family, father, late husband, and members of his family have worked at the Clairton Coke Works in the past. I am and was a member of the Clean Water Action group, and when I joined the movement in early 2005. I wanted to find out what exactly was happening in the plant in our area. I've been interviewed for newspapers and for the Breathe Foundations. I asked questions and I found out answers. I've learned that pollutants are also coming in from upstream, from oil and gas drilling in nearby Washington County, and various plants in surrounding counties and states. Pollutants come from diesel engines, etc., buses, trucks, and different heavy equipment. Has anyone checked out and find those groups? I'm not here to give you facts and figures. Somebody else is going to do that. What I have asked and have seen is that Clairton Coke Works is cleaning up its act. When my father worked in Clairton, we could not see the plant. Now we can. The smells were atrocious. When my husband worked there, he came home somewhat dirty and smelled like he was from the plant. I don't believe they do that now if they don't have to. What I'm saying is that Clairton Coke Works takes pride in what they're doing. They've cleaned up the plant. If they see something is wrong, they are trying to fix it. What I'm asking is give them a chance to do it. I know some individuals want the plant closed. What's the purpose in that? To put people out of work? Not only are you jeopardizing the jobs of people working in the plant, but those connected to it, vendors, suppliers, and personnel who come into the plant. Why? To what end? We have lived near this plant for decades. If we feel we are in jeopardy, it's all right to move. That plant has been here for decades. Some people have suffered from illnesses that we want to blame on the plant. Some are negligent in what they do, but some also live to an old age. My father-in-law was 94 when he passed last year. So what's your answer? My answer is not one to close the plant, but let them make things right, and that's exactly what they are doing. Let them continue to be responsible neighbors of Clairton. Thank you.
Next speaker is Matthew Mahalik.
Hi, I'm Matt Mahalik. I'm the Executive Director of the Breathe Project. Thank you for holding this hearing. In Allegheny County, we should feel confident knowing that the air we breathe will not make us sick or cause cancer, asthma, or other diseases. We have the right to live and work in clean, safe, and healthy environments. ACHD should not preemptively limit its legal authority to propose regulations and enforce compliance with the Clean Air Act. The Breathe Project asserts that the proposed ACHD regulations must be as strident as possible to protect the health of residents of the Mon Valley and all of Allegheny County from ongoing poor air quality from the Clairton Coke Works. The Coke Works have been causing air pollution problems for a long period of time and adds to our region's existing burden of air pollution problems. The Coke Works is the largest plant in the U.S. and has been a major source of air pollution for decades. Nearly 90% of the point source cancer risk estimated in Allegheny County is attributable to coke oven emissions, with 90% of those emissions coming from one source, the Clairton Coke Works. Yesterday, UPMC and the University of Pittsburgh released a study that showed that the air quality index has linked with asthma air-related hospital visits among children in Allegheny County. Even moderate days send kids to the hospital. This association between air quality and asthma-related hospitalizations was strongest among children aged 6 through 11 and Black children. During the first 131 days of 2022, our region's air ranked among the top 10 worst places in the country for at least a portion of the day 59 times. That's about half of all days, and was ranked the #1 worst air 19 of these times. The Liberty Monitor is in the top worst 10% nationally of all monitored locations in the U.S. U.S. Steel, the operator of the Coke Works, has received at least 14 enforcement orders and paid over $9 million in penalties going back to April of 2019, about $375,000 a quarter. This is because this plant leaks and is difficult to control. Our county regularly sees exceedances of the state's 24-hour H2S standard. According to your own reports, our region has experienced over 50 days per year on average over the past 24 years where the Mon Valley monitors recorded exceedances of the 24-hour H2S standard. There's been no noticeable improvement in meeting this standard over this 24-year period. And in fact, the problem got worse in 2021. There were over 140 violations of this standard in 2021. This alone justifies more strident requirements and updates to coke oven regulations. The Breathe Project encourages ACHD to move forward aggressively to reduce coke oven pollution through effective regulations, operational procedural requirements, inspections, and enforcement. Let's save lives, reduce burdens on vulnerable people, and preserve future generations' rights to clean air and a healthy climate in an action that can make all of us proud.
Latanzi.
Good evening. Need my glasses first. Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Mayor Rich Latanzi, and I've been the mayor here for 13 years. I've lived in Clairton for 58 years. I know the town and the people very well. Growing up, there were some issues that were somewhat troublesome. There were sulfur smells, black particulates everywhere, no vegetation, murky water, and such. Growing up as a child, my father worked in a mill. When my mother did his laundry, it smelled like sulfur in our house. That's the way we were brought up, and that's the way it was. We don't have those issues anymore. The people in the mill, they get their clothes laundered there, and the sulfur smell no longer exists there. Over these years, there's been plenty of improvements. Living here and seeing is the proof in the pudding. Like I said, as I was growing up, living in Clairton and Wilson, looking across the river at the rocks, there was no vegetation. All the rocks was bare. I used to drive my motorcycle up there. Kids would spray paint their name on the rocks. If I went fishing with one of my friends or two, whenever you would catch a fish, you didn't know what you had until you pulled it up to the beginning of the water to see what it was. Like I said, as mayor, 13 years, and council for 7, I don't hear many complaints about pollution or the air. Air pollution, I can't breathe, or some related complaints are non-existent or very little. I do understand that people with respiratory ailments may surely be affected, and that's understandable. I or we need to work together to find an amendable resolution, working together for a common attainable goal. As U.S. Steel continues to make improvements with their 100-plus year mill, quite frankly, I personally believe the standards and the time constraints are very difficult. Currently, I sit on the CAP board with the neighboring communities. We have a wonderful relationship, and we all care about our communities. We talk about the pluses and the problems that with U.S. Steel. In the CAP meetings as we meet, we discuss some of the items, and we're at free will and liberty to ask any questions about anything that we read or heard on the news, and we always get an answer, or we get statistics, or we get somebody that's in that department to explain it. So we're quite happy with that. We are very informed. Like I said, we see the charts, the graphs, and they tell us about new projects that are going to happen. Unfortunately, the biggest project that Clairton was excited about was the Cogen project, but basically we're chasing them out of town, and they got one foot in Arkansas. But anyway, Clairton last year, through the impact program of the U.S. Steel Trust Fund, the city of Clairton received $1.5 million over 2 years, going into many of the projects in the city of Clairton. In 1970, there was a big decline in steel. The coke works, the city of Clairton had 22,000 people. When the jobs in the mill went down, we went down to 7,000 people. People left for jobs and businesses shut down. We are currently rebuilding, and the future is bright. Without the coke plant, people will leave again, and our tax base will be compromised, and the city will not succeed. Thank you very much.
The next speaker is Don Furco.
Good evening. My name is Don Furco. I'm the president of United Steelworkers Local 1557 in Clairton, PA. I represent 1,169 union men and women, the best in the business, who work at U.S. Steel's Clairton Coke Works. Together, we produce coke that feeds every blast furnace in the company, and we produce 1/4 of the coke consumed in the country annually. I have 2 boys. They're 15 and 13. I want them to have clean water to drink and bathe in, and I want them to have clean air to breathe. As someone with asthma myself, I also depend on clean air, especially on Saturday nights while I'm playing soccer at Shenley Park. Luckily, my lungs haven't been the issue as much as being 48 years old and out of shape. I grew up in the 80s in Monroeville. I remember playing midget football in the mid-80s when I was 12 or 13 and traveling to away games here in Clairton. As we'd pass by the plant that I would now work in, we'd roll up the windows regardless of the temperature because of the fog of orange-green coke oven gas on Route 837. After the first pass by the plant, I'd learned to hold my breath on subsequent trips. The other thing I remember about the 80s was the collapse of the steel industry. And all U.S. Steel shut down 7 of its 12 steel mills, and its industrial workforce went from 75,000 down to 20,000. The salaried employees went from 30,000 to just 5,000. Unemployment in the Pittsburgh metropolitan area hit 17.1%. I remember my friends moving away because their dads had lost their jobs in the mills. Pittsburgh sports teams don't travel as well as most people think. Their fans were displaced in the 80s, leaving the Steel City to look for work. Hidden in the details of all these closures and job losses is the cancellation of the continuous caster at Edgar Thompson. I'm not talking about the cancellation of Project Icon last April. I'm talking about the December 1982 cancellation of the promised continuous caster in Braddock. Nearly 4 decades later, U.S. Steel's cancellation of Project Icon wasn't due to a global steel industry collapse, but rather from permitting issues as well as pushback from the public and NGOs, despite the promise of a cogeneration plant at Clairton that would have lessened emissions and lowered U.S. Steel's carbon footprint. Clairton Works is not the place that I rode by as a 12 or 13-year-old boy. It's not even the same place that I started working at nearly 22 years ago. When I started working in the mill, emissions were read once per day, and once emissions were read, would slack off. That's how it was. Now, environmental compliance is a 24-hour priority. I have over 200 members of my local whose sole job is environmental. But all 1,169 of us know environmental compliance is the #1 priority. At the same time, the inspectors reading the emissions need to be honest while doing so. That'd be appreciated. The stacks have monitors, but everything else we're judged on is subjective. There are proper places to stand while reading pushes, for instance. I was first elected in April of 2018, 8 months before the fire #2 control room that put this plant under the microscope. Since that time, one thing that's continually brought up is the improvements that are needed, but without a real solution or description of what these improvements would be. Project Icon would have helped, but that's on its way down south, where U.S. Steel is being welcomed with open arms. I mentioned the collapse of the steel industry in the region earlier because I'm afraid of history repeating itself. U.S. Steel has already made it clear that it has no qualms about taking its focus away from the Mon Valley to operate where it meets less opposition. They've asked to work cooperatively with the Allegheny County Health Department, only to be blindsided by fines and press releases. That's it? Oh, okay. Well, I urge you to work cooperatively and collaboratively with the company. Thank you.
Next speaker is James Feisler.
Good evening. Thank you for letting me speak. My name is James Beisler. I live in Lincoln Borough, and I'm currently the mayor. I've lived in Lincoln Borough since 1988, and I can tell you that the air quality in Lincoln Borough is much better than it has been previously. I think that you guys are driving the steel industry out of Allegheny County, and you should consider working with the mill rather than twisting them out, helping them stay here. And that's all I have to say.
Next speaker is Ginny Hunt.
Good evening. My name is Ginny Hunt, and I'm the superintendent of the Clairton City School District. I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak in regards to Article 21 rules. I've worked in Clairton since 2012. The air quality is better now than it has ever been. This is supported by data that indicates the region has met all federal air quality standards. I would also like to speak about the relationship between U.S. Steel Clairton Works and the Clairton City School District. In 2007, when our school district celebrated its 100th anniversary, U.S. Steel retrieved the first school bell from the 5th Street School from underneath the bleachers at the stadium. The company not only refurbished the bell and placed it in the high school to commemorate the anniversary, but they also donated $100,000 to the district to advance academics. Each year, Clairton holds a career day for our students, in which volunteers from every level of U.S. Steel, executives, engineers, and laborers, spend the day in our classrooms teaching students the skills needed to meet career exploration standards. I have also been asked by the company to direct any graduates seeking employment to their HR department. In March of 2020, 2 days after the governor closed schools due to the pandemic, I reached out to U.S. Steel and asked for a donation to purchase Chromebooks for my elementary students, knowing that if I did not act quickly, they would soon be out of stock. I immediately received a call back from U.S. Steel informing me of a large donation that enabled me to order the Chromebooks the very next day. This gift gift enabled our youngest learners access to immediate online instruction from their teachers in less than a week after the nationwide public school closures. During the pandemic, a professional employee at U.S. Steel contacted my high school principal and offered their employees to provide online tutoring and mentoring for our middle and high school students. Thus, a new academic partnership, the Homework Club, was established. In addition, USS collaborated with the Summer Food Program to provide food for our families in the community during the pandemic. Our students had recently returned to in-person learning in the fall of 2020 after months of remote learning, when a water line burst behind the building, flooding the elementary school with 250,000 gallons of water and destroying the boiler systems, which provide heat and hot water to the entire building. This resulted in a restoration process that took most of the 2021 school year to complete, leaving all of our students displaced. We were forced back to learning remotely with minimal in-person instruction, sharing secondary facilities, and using portable classrooms. Again, Mike Rhodes from U.S. Steel reached out. He came and toured the destruction and offered whatever help we needed. I told him I would get back to him, and I did with a huge request. Our newly restored elementary school looked bright, cheerful, and inviting. However, our secondary students would be returning to a school that also needed work, especially painting, but we had no budget to do it.
3 minutes.
Mike, I'm done already?
Hit 3 minutes.
Okay. Well, thank you.
The next speaker is Joseph Burgess.
Hi, my name is Jojo Burgess. I'm going to say a little bit about myself for a second because I am a proud steel worker that works at Clairton Steel. For some of y'all that may not know, I had an honor bestowed upon me of being able to sit in the First Lady's box at the State of the Union address. That happened because of my representation of workers and being given the honor of introducing President Joe Biden during the infrastructure speech down in Pittsburgh when the Fern Hollow Bridge collapsed. My job down at U.S. Steel is as a new hire trainer. I am the guy that safely teaches them how to do their job on these batteries. I know that every employee down there that Don Ferko talked about, the 1169, take pride in our environmental practices and standards that we meet down there at U.S. Steel. One thing you have to realize is we have a 99% compliance rate with the emissions down there. And we're being told that's not good enough. On the strictest emissions standards in the world, let's just say what it is. We have people that are coming into Clairton telling people in their own house how they feel. I've lived in southwestern Pennsylvania for 52 years. I can remember going to Kennywood and riding up 837 and seeing all the haze and all the darkness as we go to Kennywood and try to have a good time from the mills in the Mon Valley. For the Allegheny County Health Department to continue to put the restrictions on this plant that they're doing is only going to drive businesses out of here. And if this place fails, it does not only fail the city of Clairton, it fails the whole southwestern region of this state. You need to take that into consideration. One thing that you have is, although that name has Clairton on it, there are people from Fayette County working there. There are people from Washington County working there. There are people from as far away as Indiana County working in that facility that take pride in making sure that we keep that facility tight, period. I understand all the fines, and I heard the gentleman talk about being able to appeal those fines. If the fines were levied fairly and there was no appeal process, you know, it baffles me all the stuff that I hear when I'm here. And the people saying about breathing and being in this area and the emissions and how it is and things like that. That is a big falsehood. Again, I appreciate the time that you allowed me to have today here to speak about what our employees down at U.S. Steel, our union members down there that take pride in making sure they have a clean environment for everybody to live in and work in, what they do every day. Thank you.
Next speaker is
That's what I'm telling you.
Good evening. My name is Brian Kuba. I'm currently a shift manager in Coke operations in the Mon Valley Works Clairton plant. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you this evening about the new Allegheny County regulations on Coke production. I was employed previously with DT Energy Shenango for about 7 years. I started in the union. I transitioned into management as I believed that this was going to be a long-term career that I would be able to retire from. The news that the plant was permanently idling came right before the holidays. This left me uncertain as to my future. I had a wife, 2 kids, a mortgage, as most of us do, and thankfully, U.S. Steel employed me 6 months later. Unfortunately, many of my friends, co-workers were not as lucky. So they were forced into early retirement, reduced pensions, some found employment with lower wages, to little to no health care. I would hate to see this similar situation happen to 1,300 dedicated men and women in the Mon Valley Works area, especially in Clairton. Those men and women were dedicated to their jobs safely, environmentally performing, and protecting the environment at the forefront of everything they do down there. We are very proud of the world-class environmental performance, and in fact, this is contributing to the best air quality Allegheny County has ever seen. I'd like to thank everybody for letting me speak tonight.
Next speaker is Myron Arnowitz.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Myron Arnowitz. I am the Pennsylvania Director for Clean Water Action. Excuse me. I had a number of comments specific to the Coke oven regulations, but we'll submit those in writing. I will say from some of the previous comments that I've two thoughts. One is that I think most of the concern about the U.S. Steel's Clairton Coke Works has to do with the management and not the workers. There is management decisions that are being made that are affecting this community and these workers, and it's time we wake up to that reality and work together. Management makes decisions such as running this plant when pollution control equipment had been destroyed in the fire on Christmas Eve in 2018. Resulting in 100 days of high levels of pollution for this entire community. Management makes decisions like deciding that they don't want to have a union workforce anymore and would rather operate in Arkansas where they can push people around and pay lower wages. This is what the company is doing, and this is what we all need to wake up and figure out how to deal with. I would also invite union members here to talk with some of the folks in the community who have been experiencing health problems. Clean Water Action worked with a local group, Valley Clean Air Now, and others in the Clairton community to run a program where people in the community who have health problems from air pollution that gets into their houses could receive portable air cleaners to help improve their health. We were overwhelmed by the applications. 15% of the residents of Clairton applied to this program. That doesn't sound to me like it's just a couple people who are experiencing health problems. We had 30% of the applications, people had respiratory problems, 30% had heart problems. There is a large group of people who are greatly impacted. And that's what these decisions are about. These are not about jobs versus the environment or any kind of abstract sort of thing that people want to talk about. This is about living or dying. That's what these decisions are about. And it's time for all of us to take that seriously. Thank you.
Next speaker is Michael Rose.
Good evening. My name is Michael Rhodes, and I'm the plant manager at U.S. Steel's Mon Valley Works Clairton plant. And I am honored to speak to you this evening representing over 1,300 hardworking men and women at the Clairton plant. The Clairton plant has achieved and sustained compliance rates over 99% with our permit requirements. As ACHD has previously acknowledged, the existing rules in Allegheny County are already the toughest in the nation. We are very proud that our contributions have improved the region's air quality and that all the monitors in the region have demonstrated attainment with the health-based National Ambient Air Quality Standards. We work collaboratively with the ACHD on the SO2 State Implementation Plan. The result, attainment with the SO2 NAAQS in the region. We work collaboratively with the ACHD on PM 2.5 reductions and submitted plans to reduce the emissions during periods of atmospheric inversions. The result, attainment with the PM 2.5 NAAQS for the region. Tonight's topic deals with the new rules impacting coke making in Allegheny County. This process has taken significant time, and unfortunately during the process, U.S. Steel had to petition the Allegheny County Health Department's hearing officer in dispute resolution, which was granted in part because the ACHD was not working collaboratively and proposed new standards without showing that the previously proposed standards were technologically achievable or would result in a measurable improvement in air quality. The criteria to which ACHD agreed to in the June 2019 settlement agreement with U.S. Steel. The Clairton plant already has the best, most efficient process for removing sulfur from coke oven gas in the entire industry. Yet we wasted time in this process in dispute resolution rather than working together, as we have in the past, to generate results. In addition, we've offered to work with the ACHD on developing a better understanding of the region's sources that contribute to the exceedances of the state's non-health-based hydrogen sulfide standard. The ACHD has chosen not to work collaboratively on this matter and has instead issued a unilateral enforcement order that we have appealed. When we work together as industry and regulators, good things happen. U.S. Steel is dedicated to working collaboratively with the Allegheny County Health Department and continued improvement to the region's air quality. Thank you.
Next speaker is Brett Tuna.
Hello, my name is Brett Tuno, and I am an environmental engineer at United States Steel Corporation headquarters. An overarching concern regarding the previous proposed rulemaking was ACHD's failure to comply with its obligations under the June 2019 settlement agreement. When entering the agreement, U.S. Steel was encouraged by ACHD's agreement to adopt regulations with a more factual basis, accuracy, transparency, fairness, consistency, and objectivity. Critical to the agreement was a commitment by ACHD to provide objective information and data to support any proposed changes to its regulations. Unfortunately, ACHD did not abide by these principles in the first revision to the coke oven regulations, which forced U.S. Steel to pursue legal remedies. U.S. Steel offers the following comments. Number one, for pushing, ACHD incorporated a portion of PA Code 129.15, but omitted other portions of the PA Code. Per the ACHD hearing officer decision in December 2021, the order said if the regulation is required by Pennsylvania, it is okay for ACHD to incorporate, but ACHD cannot abbreviate the standard. To comply with the order and to be consistent with PADEP regulations, U.S. Steel requests that ACHD incorporate PA Code 129.15 as written by PADEP. Number two, for pushing, ACHD deleted the turbine outlet concentration from condition 3 for the B battery particulate mass emission rate. This deletion removes the clarity that is needed by Clairton to adequately determine compliance with the condition and differs from the result of dispute resolution. U.S. Steel requests that ACHD add determined by an outlet concentration back into the condition. Number 3, and lastly, U.S. Steel requests that ACHD provide the process by which ACHD develops new test methods, similar to EPA and other jurisdictions, to ensure the ACHD testing methods are fact-based, accurate, transparent, fair, repeatable, consistent, and objective. U.S. Steel appreciates ACHD's careful consideration of these comments. Thank you.
Next speaker is John L. Sheets.
Hello, my name is John L. Sheets. I was born and raised in Portview Borough and graduated from South Allegheny High School. My husband is from Liberty Borough, where we lived for over 10 years in our first home. In 2017, we bought property in Lincoln Borough and built our home where we live with our 2 children. Our 7-year-old is in 1st grade at South Allegheny Elementary in Glassport, and our 2-year-old will start preschool in Portview next year. Many of my family and friends have worked directly for U.S. Steel or as contractors. My father worked in the Mon Valley plants for many years as an electrician with Local 5. Many of the people I attended high school with work in the plants as well. I have seen firsthand the impact that these family-sustaining jobs at the company have made on those in my community. In addition to living in the adjacent communities to the U.S. Steel Clairton plant my entire life, I have almost 10 years service as the plant's environmental engineer. My primary responsibility is to work with operation and maintenance personnel to comply with environmental regulations. I have worked hand in hand with the more than 1,300 Clairton employees that have seen them achieve unparalleled environmental performance. Every single day, the first topics discussed among the crews of employees working in the plant, up through the plant manager, are safety and environmental. The most current safety and environmental performance are the first topics discussed each day because they are the most important. Daily focus in these areas ensures that our employees return home safely to their families and that we are operating within the community safely and in compliance with environmental regulations. I've worked at other facilities besides the Clairton plant, and the environmental awareness of the Clairton employees is unrivaled. Environmental is ingrained in everything we do at the plant. I believe much of the reason for this is that, like me, so many of the employees live and work here. We work here to provide good lives for our families, and we live here because the surrounding communities are wonderful, safe places to live. My husband and I have decided to build our life in the communities we were brought up in and raise our children here. I am a proud member of this community, and I feel U.S. Steel is generally supported by my neighbors in this community as well. I am proud to be a U.S. Steel employee. I believe that the hard work of the Clairton employees will continue to result in a rewarding balance the local communities and the environment can benefit from. Thank you.
The next speaker is R. Tony Curta.
Good evening. My name's Tony Curta. I'm a city councilman here in the city of Clairton. I've lived here most of my life. What I wanted to speak about tonight is it's easy for all of us to I don't want to say hate or dislike a corporation, but what I'd like to think about tonight is the faces behind that. A lot of the folks in this room are the men and women from U.S. Steel whose families depend on that. Even the folks that are here in opposition of the Coke Works benefit from U.S. Steel every day. In our city here, a lot of things we can't do because we don't have the funding, we don't have the manpower. Not one time in the last 6 years that I've been on council have I approached U.S. Steel or any other councilman and they even blinked. There's not a park in this city that these men and women haven't touched and made better. Our swimming pool, if you came across this bridge, you'll see the trees lined up that they helped plant. Everything they've done with our school, the fields, it's sweat equity from the men and women. And like yourselves, we all think the same thing, Allegheny County Health Department. We forget about the faces, so now we have faces in front of us. What I'd like to ask you folks to do going forward is not feed into the divide. Going forward, I think it should be the Allegheny County Health Department in conjunction with U.S. Steel to make all of our air better and make things better for the community and the county. Thank you.
Next speaker is Tammy Froda.
Good evening. My name is Tammy Furta, and I'm a 22-year member of council for the Borough of Lincoln. I've also lived in the Mon Valley for probably roughly 38 years. My greatest concern, I am for clean air, and I think the mill is doing a great job. I want to make that clear. I sit on the community advisory panel, and I also am the president of the Still Rivers Council of Governments, which includes 19 communities from the Mon Valley area. My biggest concern is what's going to happen. What's the plan? If we can't work together, what's the plan? Closing that mill is going to be devastating to this area. I am sure most of you that sat in this room with me tonight, whether it was your parents or whether it was you, remembers what happened when our mills closed back in the 80s, losing 27,600 jobs and 40,000 ancillary jobs. The blight today is still there. Act 152 was recently created. $2 million became available for demolitions. $8 million worth of applications were submitted. And that don't even begin to touch it. And with all that comes other health issues. When you have blight, dilapidated homes, the drug issues, people have lost their jobs, they turn to alcohol. It creates a lot of issues. We have to learn to work together. I've learned one thing in being in government. The more you work together, and they're here with me tonight, Elena, Anthony, all of you stand up, Kelly, all these people have worked with me. And you know who brought us together? Lincoln, Mayor Latanzi, Lee. All these people brought us together was U.S. Steel. And we realized something by being together. When you work together, you can get more done. And that's all we're asking of you, is to realize what can happen to our communities. Take a look around. I know you've had to drive to some of the Mon Valley after the mills closed last time. You're losing the same amount of jobs this time. We're already at 3,000 between 3 mills and 9 ancillary jobs for each of those jobs. Added up, you're losing the same amount of jobs again. It's not good for us. So I ask you to please sit down with the mill, to work with them, take into consideration some of the things they're requesting. I heard Mike Rhodes stand up here and ask you personally to please work with us. They're willing to do what's right. They're willing to do what's right for the communities. They're willing to do what's right for the Mon Valley. And I just ask that you give them that chance.
Next speaker is Ken Zapinski.
My name is Ken Zapinski. I'm Director of Research and Public Policy for Pittsburgh Works Together. Pittsburgh Works is an alliance of corporate and organized labor leaders whose goal is to build an economy that works for everybody. Pittsburgh Works is committed to an inclusive economy that respects traditional industries alongside emerging ones, all while ensuring a sustainable environment. We need all kinds of jobs for all kinds of workers if we're going to continue to rebuild our regional economy and maintain strong communities for future generations. The major point to keep in mind as the Health Department considers any air quality regulation is that the air in Allegheny County is cleaner now than at any time since the start of the Industrial Revolution. EPA air regulations have never been more stringent, and for the first time in history, the Pittsburgh region is in compliance with every single one of them. Our own analysis of the region's air quality shows that our air is typical of that found in big city regions around the country. Better than in some places, worse than in others. The Allegheny Health Department should see its mission as working with companies to find environmentally safe and sustainable ways to conduct business and build an economy that supports healthy communities. But regulators, encouraged by environmental activists, seem intent on helping drive manufacturing out of business. The Mon Valley Works, including the Clairton Coke plant, employs 3,000 people directly, with roughly a quarter of them coming from the economically distressed communities of the valley. plant supports thousands more jobs throughout the regional economy. A shutdown of U.S. Steel would be devastating to the employees of U.S. Steel and their families, and to the Mon Valley communities where the company operates. We reiterate our support for a healthy environment for the Pittsburgh region. That includes finding the proper balance that provides for economic opportunity for the region and the families that live here. We strongly encourage the Allegheny County Health Department to work in a more cooperative manner with all manufacturing and industrial firms in the county. That does not mean cutting corners or jeopardizing public health. It means applying well-designed rules in an appropriate manner so the health department does not discourage capital investment and the reduction of good-paying, family-sustaining jobs. A healthy regional environment must include a viable manufacturing base and quality of life for the hardworking men and women who work in those industries. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Richard Ford, and I'm a lifelong citizen of the city of Clairton. I was born in the city of Clairton in 1948, so I don't know how many more people have been here to see this any more than I have. But what I would like to say today is I'm not here to close, first of all, to close United States Steel. I do believe that they're working hard, and I sit on the CAP board. I was a member of city council. I just retired this past December for 16 years. So I looked at a lot of things that go on in this town, a lot of things that go on in this entire county. So I've seen and I've been a part of a lot of it. And some of the things that have happened, as it's been stated, some of the individuals on council and different parts of political arenas, we have been looking at these things and watching them and really needing help from them. We encourage, as it's been said, all of us need to work together. I thank the clean air people for some of the things that I learned about what's going on, I would not have known. I thank U.S. Steel for being allowed to sit on the CAP board. And whenever I'm sitting there and ask any questions, they give me answers. And I can see, standing on the hillside where I used to play games and everything, and the sheets were gray, the cars had impediment all over it. Now I can look over that hill and I can look at that mill and I can see people actually walking on the batteries. So I know they're working and I know they're doing a good job. But some of the things that I feel as a community leader is some of the things I'm looking at how the monies are being spent that are being fined by U.S. Steel. I totally don't agree with the stipulations we have to go through as communities to try to acquire any of that money. They tell us to ask for the money to do something to clean the air. Well, we didn't dirty the air. Whoever dirtied the air, cleaned the air. Those fine money should be coming to people who live in these communities. And we have done that. And that's been a benefit. You've heard the city leaders come up and say the things that we have been able to do and be able to afford because of the benefit fund. Well, here lately, they got a fine for, out of $2.5 million, Clairton received $900,000, which was great. We bought several things that we wouldn't have been able to buy. Here recently, the county found them $4.5 million, but now that's not going into the trust fund. I encourage the clean air people who taught us about all of these things we're looking at to look at where that money goes that the county is spending, because it's not fair. I've seen things that come out of Aetna, all kind of places, but the 5 communities that suffer the most need to be benefiting the most. And then all of us, clean air, U.S. Steel, health department, let's work together to make this community what we want it to be. Thank you.
Next speaker is Art Thomas. Is Art Thomas here? Yeah, he's here.
Good evening. My name is Art Thomas. I've been a resident of Clairton longer than Mr. Richie Ford. I'm probably the oldest person in the room right now. Lived in Clairton most of my life, over 70 years. I can remember when the smoke was black and got on the sheets and stuff and you had to go out and snatch your laundry in. I can remember driving past the mill when they were quenching coke. You had to put your windshield wipers on because you couldn't see. Those were bad days, yeah. Now the smoke is white, and everybody thinks everything is all right, okay? But it's not. When I go out here, I know absolutely nobody personally that has died from COVID. But the number of funerals I've been to lately is ridiculous, and it's cancer, COPD, all the stuff that this Clairton mill is putting out is killing people in Clairton. And it's ridiculous for these people to sit up here and tell us that and as a matter of fact, I'd like to ask the question, is that all right? How many people in this room do we have working for U.S. Steel? Will you please stand up? Will you please stand up? Everybody working for U.S. Steel. I know some of you guys. All right, stand up, stand up. All you people can do is all right? Hey, there they go, okay? The last meeting I went to, it was overcome by members of U.S. Steel being paid on the clock for coming to a meeting about how good they're doing. All right? They were paid by U.S. Steel to be at the last meeting. They had filled up the room so much, citizens of Clairton didn't know what was happening. Citizens of Clairton need to know how dire these conditions are in Clairton. People are dying all the time in Clairton. And everybody, we had the dirt. I can't understand how people can stand up here and say we're making improvements to the air, and we have the dirtiest air in the country. Not the county, but in the country. Third worst air. I can go on TV, Weather Channel. I can get the pollen count. I can get the air quality. And here we are living in the armpit of the universe, which is called Clairton, Pennsylvania. And we don't know they had a fire down there until 2 weeks later by watching TV. Am I running over my time, anybody? 30 seconds. 30 seconds to go? Get them. All right, and this is a shame. Disgrace. All right? You people, and as a matter of fact, the last health board meeting I went to, some 16-year-old girl got up and had to tell the health board that they're not taking this seriously because only one member on the health board had on a mask. I'm done. Bye.
The next speaker is Kim Meacham.
Hello. My name is Kim Meacham. I'm 63 years old, and I've been a resident of Clairton my entire life. I sat here and listened to the graphs about the air conditions, the improvements they're making. In the last 100 years, how many times have they complied with the EPA standards? Not very many. The fact that our children are suffering the most with childhood asthma, emphysema. My grandfather died of bronchitis. My father died from leukemia. My mother died from lung cancer. There's definitely something wrong here. We can say that for sure. My dad didn't live to see 61. He worked in Clairton Mill 44 years, never collected a dime of pension. So who suffers the most? The workers. Out of all these people that work for U.S. Steel, how many are residents of Clairton? In the past, every household darn near in Clairton had a person working at U.S. Steel. The community was thriving, was no problems about who's paying their taxes because they were getting plenty of tax dollars when they kept people here employed in U.S. Steel. Now, we talk about batteries 1, 2, and 3 having leaky coke oven gas. What are you doing about it? We'd like to see it shut down because I'm tired of being poisoned daily, waking up out of my sleep from the stench from U.S. Steel. I'm not saying it's the worst place in the world. It's fed me, kept a roof over my head, clothed me and my sisters. But the loss of our parents was the worst thing that could ever happen. I can remember distinctly being in Jefferson Hospital when the doctor told me my mother suffered from asbestosis. Never worked in the mill in her entire life, but my father did. What he brought home to us has been detrimental to our family. We don't see the effects now, but as I said, my father only lived to see 60. My mother didn't make it to 70. So who's going to help us now? All we ask, if you comply, that's all we're asking for. It's not too much. We are tax-paying citizens. I own a home. I pay my taxes, and I ain't got to worry about nobody talking about me being delinquent or nothing. But as a tax-paying citizen, don't I have a right to have clean air? Can I go outside on my porch and enjoy my porch without having to sweep particulate matter off of my porch every day, on my windowsills, on the blinds in my house? We're all suffering. All we ask is that you comply. But if you can't comply, then I say bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Next speaker is David Meckel.
Good evening. My name is David Meckel. I've lived in Glassport for about 23 and a half years. And what I can see from the health department and the boys in blue back there, you both are not doing your jobs. Number one, U.S. Steel, the boys in blue back there, if they cleaned up the air, why is my living room table have this kind of soot on it? That's only 3 days with my windows open. 3 days, and your soot comes right in. I have a particulate collector in my yard that the results are delivered to the health department, and it seems like in Glassport, we are second from Clairton as far as particulate pollution goes. You have not fined them enough to get their attention. They got more money than Carter got little liver pills, and you need to take some of their money away from them. The other thing is, they're defacing my property. Not my property, but all your properties, because you all got the same soot on your porches, in your living rooms, in your dining rooms. If you have air conditioning, you're good to go, because you can leave your windows shut and live like a turtle in a shell. I ain't no turtle. Got that, fellas in blue? I want you to clean up your act. If you say you're cleaning the air, why do I have this? Why? Why? Tell me why. Because you can't, because you're not doing your job. You're not cleaning up the air. You're lying.
Lying.
Thank you. I'm done now.
Next speaker is Cindy Meckel.
My name's Cindy Meckel. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I'm not talking about 80 years ago or 20 years ago or 10 years ago. I'm talking about tomorrow. I applaud the efforts of the health department in putting through regulations to allow us to breathe clean air. I only think that the discussions that we've had today about the benefits of U.S. Steel, no one's going to argue with that. No one's going to argue with their contributions. No one's going to argue with the work ethic of the men and the women that work at that plant. But there are decisions that are being made, decisions to run batteries 1, 2, and 3 when the air pollution equipment is not working. There are times in which U.S. Steel has promised that they're going to shut down batteries 1, 2, and 3. We're just asking that they put a date on it and that there is enforcement there. We ask that Allegheny County Health Department enforces the rules against U.S. Steel or any pollutant into the air of our valley. And we ask that it is enforced to a degree that it does not happen again. We ask that U.S. Steel be called on the carpet for the lies that they've been told and for the brainwashing of this valley, because they have lied to us. They lied to us over the fire. They lied to us when they told us they would absolutely help diagnose health conditions after the fire. That was a lie. They lied to us when they promised billions of dollars to clean up this plant, and that is a lie, because now they're taking the money elsewhere. The reality is they're bleeding this Mon Valley dry, and they're going to shut it down and move somewhere else anyway, and we're just along for the ride. We're asking that the rules of clean air be followed, that fines do in fact exist, that we are able to live and breathe freely. There's no monitor that needs to tell me when the air quality is bad. I can count on each hand every weekend when I take my dog out at 5 in the morning, whether it's going to be an orange day. Because when the inspectors aren't there, the air gets worse on the weekends. So we're just asking for fairness. We know, all of us know, that U.S. Steel has made millions of dollars. We're asking them to stand up and be good corporate citizens and fix what is broken in that plant, fix the 70-plus years of corrosion that has happened in batteries 1, 2, and 3. We're asking that you know what the exceedances are, and when they happen, stand up like good corporate citizens and fix them. So I applaud the efforts of the Allegheny County Health Department. I hope that the regulations continue to be strict and that enforcement happens. Thank you.
Next speaker is J.T. Walker.
Hello, can you hear me? Hi, my name is Jay Ting Walker, and I'm an advocacy coordinator for Clean Air Council. The Allegheny County Health Department is conducting another round of proposed coke oven regulations. The proposed regulations are flawed because the department has attempted to abandon its legal authority to adopt more stringent standards for coke oven batteries in the 2019 settlement agreement with U.S. Steel. Like the previous rounds of proposed coke oven regulations last year, the department attempts to pick around the edges of regulation, relegating itself to changing the language of its regulations to conform to the requirements of state regulations. In its response to comments on the previous round of proposed regulations, the department never explained why state regulations do not already apply, which would make this largely a pointless exercise. In 2018, the department actually proposed regulations that would lower the percentage of allowable leaking doors, lids, and offtakes. But the department reversed this course of action when it entered into the settlement agreement, removing those proposals in subsequent proposed regulations. It is unlawful for the department to attempt to abandon its authority to adopt more stringent coke oven regulations. In the proposed regulations, the department does nothing to expand upon and enhance the work practice plan requirements relating to leaking doors, lids, and offtakes. In 1993, the facility prepared a plan that purported to address such leaks, but there are flaws. In the latest round of proposed regulations, the department proposes to strike the particulate mass emission rates in the regulations applicable to batteries 1 to 3, 13 to 15, and 19 to 20. Contrary to the department's explanations, these requirements already apply to these batteries. The department proposes to retain a 2-door exclusion that effectively makes the door requirements less stringent than federal requirements. Ironically, the department proposed to eliminate the exclusion last year, but now proposes to retain it. Thank you.
want to thank you for allowing me to speak before you today. The Clean Air Act gives me the right to clean air, and not clean air for the future, but clean air now and clean air yesterday and clean air last year. In 2019, March, my doctor told me to get the hell out of Clairton, but it was too late because I was too damaged to go anywhere. We talk about how we think, some think it's an illusion that we have bad air nowadays. And this illusion has caused me to have to walk around with batteries on my side, on both sides, a regulator on my chest, a wire coming out of my side, emergency equipment inside of my chair. That's what that illusion is doing to me. Now, if we have a right to clean air, well, when that bad air came into my house, as far as I'm concerned, that was assault with a deadly weapon. I'm trying to stay alive. You know, I'm not just advocating something, I'm trying to stay alive. Years ago, we had a Bethlehem Steel in Seattle, and we protested against them, and everybody was crying about, well, what would happen with the jobs. We got rid of Bethlehem Steel, we got Costco in there, we got Amazon.com in there, we got Microsoft in there, and in 1993, we had over 10,000 Microsoft millionaires because we were moving in a different direction. We want to stay back in the days of burning coal when there's a future out here. And if we don't set ourselves up to step forward into this future, we'll still be making buggy whips in a year or two. But I think now, nobody came to me and negotiated away my right to clean air. And somebody owed me some kind of compensation for just taking it out of my house. You won't let me go in your house and take what I want. They can't come in my house and take what they want. Thank you.
Next speaker is Cam Ansari.
By the way, shut down the coke ovens, 1, 2, and 3.
Thank you. So I've submitted some written comments with specifics, but I just want to speak to some of the comments today. So I do want to recognize the work that U.S. Steel has done in the past to keep up with these new regulations and these air standards. As many folks have said, in the past you couldn't see the mill, there was no vegetation, and the air quality was much worse than it is today, although it still is bad. I do want to recognize, though, that those changes were not made until we had tougher air quality laws. Thus, the good air and the good work that folks at U.S. Steel are doing is because Allegheny County Health Department has continued to puff tougher regulations. I do want to say that I agree with Allegheny County Health Department's new regulations to at least meet the standard federal requirements for clean air. And I also want to say that I do not feel like it's really fair that U.S. Steel can make $381 million this quarter, roughly $9.8 million a day, and threaten the people of the Mon Valley to up and take their jobs because they don't want to clean up their act. I don't think it's right that they toss their weight around to try and intimidate folks. And I feel like, based on what everyone has said here tonight, I would hope that we could come to some sort of agreement to get some sort of clear data, earlier warning signs when the air quality is bad, not for folks outside of the plant and for folks inside of the plant. We no longer want to see regulations that have to be done with standards that aren't using real data methods that are immediate and are not subject to people's personal opinions or what they could visibly see. Because as we know, although the air is visibly better, it is not better when we're talking about particulate matter and how those health effects affect people with asthma and causes them these long-term health effects. So I just want to say that I appreciate everyone for coming out here tonight. And I also would like to invite those U.S. Steel workers and county representatives to come to one of our meetings so that we can discuss ways in which we could work together. I don't truly feel like we have any enemies in this room, and I feel like things can get a little personal whenever we're talking about jobs, being able to pay our bills and being able to take care of our families. But at the end of the day, I think we all want the same things, and I want to just thank everyone for coming out here tonight and invite you all to join one of our meetings and open up some dialogue with us so that we can come to a solution that works for everyone. Thank you.
Next speaker is Ashton Reck. Is Ashton Reck here? Okay, the next speaker is Jermaine Patterson.
Good evening. My name is Jermaine Gooden Patterson. I'm a lifelong resident of the Mon Valley, 17 years in Clairton, mother of 3, community health worker with Women for a Healthy Environment, and an active member of VCAN, a local grassroots organization. I am here this evening to share my concern for what seems to be a blatant disregard for the health and lived experiences of residents who are mostly impacted by the emissions of U.S. Steel. The Health Department's stated mission is to protect, promote, and preserve the health and well-being of all Allegheny County residents, particularly the most vulnerable. Residents' health cannot and will not be protected if ACHD continues to put itself in the position to have to issue enforcement orders and notices of violations. Residents' health cannot be protected and will not be protected if U.S. Steel just pays quarterly fines instead of reducing emission violations, which add some protection to the health of residents. Residents' health can and will not be protected if the out-of-date Clairton Coke Works, the Title V permit, is not updated in a way which really protects residents and is not written so that U.S. Steel is giving a pass to simply pay to pollute. Residents' health cannot and will not be protected if ACHD, I'm sorry, that was the last point there. The ACHD has fined U.S. Steel millions of dollars for penalties associated with emissions violations since April 2019, while grassroots organizations like VCAN are being told that clean air funds cannot be used to purchase air filters for residents. Allowing U.S. Clairton Coke Works to consistently violate their permit by issuing slap-on-the-wrist fines and penalties is not protecting the health of residents. I urge and encourage ACHD to put the health of people over the profits of big industry. I just want to make one last statement. The past superintendent failed to mention that there is an asthma clinic in the school because so many children have asthma. Unheard of. An asthma clinic in the school. I have here signatures from residents, more than a couple, who are concerned. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Matthew Nemeth.
Good afternoon. My name is Matt Nemeth. I live in the North Hills in McCandless, and the reason I drove all the way down here is because I'm outraged that my neighbors down here in the Mon Valley communities that make up around 50,000 residents live right now with toxic air. People that have elevated rates of cancer, asthma, and numerous other chronic heart and lung conditions. I also sympathize with the workers at U.S. Steel and other local major industrial polluters, for they are also affected by the greed and apathy of administrative heads. The CEO of U.S. Steel, David Burritt, made $8.5 million in 2020, and last year, $8.8 million. These were years when the pandemic and economic depression took hold, and many of us were struggling to make ends meet. His pay was 117 times the average U.S. Steel employee's. Does anyone here believe David Burritt worked 117 times as many hours as his employees, or 117 times as hard as his employees? If U.S. Steel is struggling so much with the fines they are being issued for breaking the law, then why are administrative heads and outside investors raking in so much money for themselves? When folks demand common sense pollution controls, they are in turn threatened with community job losses. This destructive cycle needs to end. U.S. Steel just spent $1.5 billion on facilities in the South that can be operated more efficiently with fewer workers that aren't protected by unionization. And folks are arguing that fines like the historic $4.6 million one in March are forcing U.S. Steel out. The heads of U.S. Steel have made it clear, now and in the past, that they care more about profits than workers and our communities. Allegheny County Health Department's job is to protect the health and well-being of county residents, not protect industrial corporations. Communities need to be working together right now to help our steel workers and other affected industry workers not fighting amongst themselves. We can have both. We just have to be willing to work together. U.S. Steel is not a savior, and we have decades of history of U.S. Steel closing operations here and leaving workers high and dry. That shows they cannot be trusted. It sickens my heart to see this region held hostage by industrial polluters and government politicians they buy off. Thank you for my time.
The last registered speaker is Bob Macy.
Hello, my name is Bob Macy, and I'm a county councilman for District 9, the Mon Valley, 94,000 people. I'd like to thank Allegheny County Health Department, my fellow Mon Valley residents, and others for their time and opportunity to speak today. As a member of Allegheny County Council, I am here to encourage us to take stock of what U.S. Steel means to our community and encourage cooperation between county government and the company. It's important to place our discussion today in context. I was a boilermaker, electrician, and lineman for U.S. Steel Duquesne Works, and my son is a fifth-generation steelworker. I also have a grandson who is a sixth-generation steelworker. Mind you, fifth generation, sixth generation. That speaks to the fact that U.S. Steel is totally linked to the Mon Valley and has been an integral part of our community for over a century. It has created jobs and sustained families to raise their children, some of whom, like mine, then go on to work for the company and start the happy, productive cycle all over again. Let's put some figures on this U.S. Steel in response to what has been said. They have created more than 3,000 jobs in the Mon Valley, and 700 of those jobs, those people live here. Of those employees that live right here in the Mon Valley, U.S. Steel has $9.35 billion a year in economic impact in southwestern Pennsylvania. The Clairton plant is the country's largest producer of coke and coal chemicals, and it generates thousands of jobs outside of the facility with contractors, logistics, and businesses and more. U.S. Steel is bigger than Pennsylvania, Allegheny County, and Pittsburgh. It makes the steel that help America build skyscrapers, cars, and actually battleships that won wars for this country. It has adapted and grown every time America's needs have changed, and our pride as workers always drove that success. What's happening now between the agency and the company is not economics. It's a communications breakdown that is risking what was once a cooperative working relationship. If we lose the company over what accounts to be a battle of wills, we all lose. We can do better, and we have to. Let's consider a few things. Because I only have a 30 seconds, I got it. That's a good report card as far as I'm concerned, making 99% of the performance standards. Well, if U.S. Steel leaves the Mon Valley, we lose. We all have driven through or have lived in communities that lost major mills and have seen the impact. Let's do what works for everyone. Good relationships and strong jobs. Thank you.
There is one other person who is on the registration, Ashton Reck. Is that Ashton Reck here at this time? Okay. That was the last registered speaker, as I said, so thank you for that. I wanted to just remind everybody that the public comment period does not end today. The public comment period goes until, just make sure I get the date proper for everybody. Goes until 4 p.m. on May 17th. Also, if you want to make written comments afterwards, it is still available until then. So, since there's no additional testimony, thank you for coming today, and the hearing is adjourned.